Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Three Idiots to Aquariums podcast. We very much appreciate you guys tuning in, and we are very appreciative of all the support because, we've been going pretty well, so pretty happy with all that. The only thing is, if you're, particularly for YouTube, but in general, if you are watching, please make sure you're subscribed or following on the appropriate platform. Just been noticing our ratio of listeners to followers is whack. So, that would be cool. But no, aside from that, just thank you. How about we started off with going around the room talking about what's been new with the fish rooms and that recently. So I don't know if you want to start us off, Cam, but what's been going on for you?
I'm absolutely fizzing because I put up another 20 aquariums last night. So we pulled out 2 racks on Saturday, Sunday. Builder came in, knocked up a couple stands, chucked them in the same spot, and then we replaced them with 20 tanks. That's going to be for our in-house quarantine setup. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I could put sponges in, fill them up, and have them operational this afternoon. But I'm looking at probably drilling them all and putting drains and overflows and stuff like that on it, so it's going to take a little bit of time. But that's progress, so I'm happy with that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what would that take your total to of tanks?
In the building?
In that for your
total. How many tanks you got? How many tanks you got running total?
I think it'll be around about 100 now.
Jesus Christ.
That quarantine area will be 44 off the top of my head.
Well, that's a fair few.
So you basically doubled your quarantine.
Yeah. I was hoping to double it, but me being me, my maths wasn't all that fantastic, and so I was short by. I thought I could get 24 in there, but I could only get 20. So essentially, it is pretty close to doubling it.
Oh, I'm sure 4 tanks would be the end of the world.
No, and it means I've got a couple of sloppy leftover ones if I drill holes and crack glass. So it's not. It's probably going to be beneficial to have extras anyway.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure you'll use them, or worst case, you can just sell them.
Oh, 100%, yes. Like there's another one that's already in that setup that I wanted to replace because all the bracing is fallen off and the lids are quite a pain. So one of them's already been spoken for, so that's only 3 left anyway.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, that's not a big
deal. Yeah, I'm sure you'll find use for them.
Oh, absolutely.
So is that's all the quarantine sorted, but you've got to put more tanks in still.
Yeah.
For breeding and raising fish and stuff like that.
Breeding, holding, raising, overflow stock and all that kind of stuff. So, and just cool stuff that I want to personally own myself. So, still plenty of work to go. But yeah, this quarantining area had to be the one that was finished first before any progress happened any other way.
Because you keep running out of fish, don't you?
Yeah. So, for those that don't know, we when we order in fish, we'll hold them out the back for at least 2 weeks. But in that 2-week period between fish releases, we basically ran out of fish. So I'm hoping that doubling the capacity could mean that I can order every week. Instead of doing big orders every week, it'll be smaller ones, just continuing to flow right through. And then we use neons, for example. So if I buy 50 1 week and then I buy 50 the next week and I've only sold 30, then there'll be another tank that can hold the overflow and then push them through. So hopefully it's it means we don't run out of fish as often as what we were.
Nice, makes sense.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to see it all up and running.
You said you're going to do it. Are you going to do a split quarantine, or are you going to do just one big one as well? So,
what it will do is it'll give me the ability, instead of having to load up everything in 1 week, like I can do an order of fish every week. So yeah. 1 week's here, 1 week's here, 1 week's here, sort of thing, and then they just roll them out as they keep going, and then replenish them.
So your quarantine isn't like a strict fish has gone into the system. Everything has to stay for 2 weeks. It's just they stay in that tank for 2 weeks
Yep.
These ones arrived here. These ones arrived. Do you quarantine all from local breeders and stuff as well?
Everything that comes in the door gets quarantined.
Yeah. And that's only for 2 weeks though. Just to make sure they're eating and looking happy. If they're not looking happy, they stay longer.
Yep, correct. If they're not eating, if something just doesn't seem right, or like in the case of the neons I recently had, I lost, I don't know, 2 or 3 a day or something like that for a week, and ended up with like 4 left out of my order. So, you know, if I'm losing fish on a regular basis in the one tank, they'll sit back until we can work it out and that sort of stuff. So it's just to not only safeguard me going into a central system in the shop, but it's also to provide a healthier, a little more chunkier, colourfuller, hopefully have a better health fish for the people that are buying them from me.
Nice. Well, that's the way to do it. Seems to make sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
What have you been up to in your fish room, Ryan? You had anything exciting going on?
I've been doing something new and exciting, which is called chasing leaking fish tanks.
Oh yeah,
New and exciting.
But my same thing. But I think I've got there with the main tanks that I wanted to get there with. I water tested the last one last night. Yeah, should be all good. I stripped a whole bunch of fish yesterday, so that was cool. Good to get some more coming through.
What kind of
So
things were you stripping?
Leaking? Go with Cam.
Your question, Cam Auckland's question was, what fish did I strip?
It was.
So I stripped some Leaven Jakes, I stripped some White Knights, I stripped some Chilosi, I stripped some... What else did I strip? It's just a case of wandering around the fish room and going, oh, you're holding, I'll take you. You're holding, I'll take you. So I've got some nice Fryeri to strip today as well. This is the strain that colours up fully at about 2 to 3 centimetres, which is insane.
Wow.
That I'm going to start working on. But yeah, so I filled up all of my little breeding tanks. I stripped some Strigatus as well for what they're worth. They're cool fish, but they don't seem to sell. But yeah. And should have 3 or 4 spare tanks sitting there soon to cycle some more breeding projects through once I fix all these leaky ones.
You'll be excited to know that I've got an electric white holding in my shop.
Oh.
Look at me, I'm nearly at your level.
Did you have white labs?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, they came with one of your other random tanks you bought?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I found the white labs, despite being really cool, just no one really wants them.
I think because they're really ugly.
No, they're cool. They're white with like a blue sheen on them. They're awesome. They're nice.
What a random take.
No, they're ugly. Compare that to an electric yellow. The electric yellows are way cooler.
Yeah, yellow labs. Yellow labs nicer, yes, but I still think that a white lab holds its own in a mixed tank, especially contrasting with blue or something. You know.
I'd rather go with the Snow White if I was going white. Now that's a cool white fish.
I swear, Cam's personality is just disagreeing with whatever anyone else thinks.
Do you not like Snow Whites? Do you not like them?
Well, they're fine. I'm not the biggest fan, but I think White Lab's so much cooler.
You're both wrong.
I'd say that. I'd say over the market, there's probably more demand for Snow Whites than there is for White Labs, from what I've seen. Yeah. But I just don't keep them.
A lot of people don't know that White Labs exist, though, is the other thing.
Yeah. I think they just look like a washed out electric yellow. And I guess that's why I don't like them. They just seem like a poor quality yellow.
Not when they're happy and coloured up and everything. When they're little, they kind of do.
Yeah. First impressions last, and my first impression, I didn't like them.
So there's some white labs. There's a breeding group of white labs for sale at the fish room. If anyone's interested,
there is a breeding group. Yeah.
Send them up.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, and then
what about you, Cam?
For me, nothing that exciting really has been happening. My maybe like 2 weeks ago, I think it is, I moved my pea puffer tank, and it was the whole idea is like to have a cool display tank and sell fish out of it. But where it is now, it gets way too much natural light, and it's kind of all going to hell. Half the plants are melting. There's like algae all over the place. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do to that. I got to fix that, but I'm not exactly sure how I want to fix it. So I've been cleaning that out quite regularly to try and keep it looking nice while I think of it, what I want to do. But I haven't solved that problem yet. But I'm sure I will solve it. I just, to be honest, haven't put that much effort into it, so it can't be that big of a problem.
What do you think has caused the algae? Just the general move and stirring everything up sort of scenario, or is it?
Oh no, where it is now is just basically like full sun.
Right. Yeah.
That was probably not my smartest idea, but I didn't even honestly, I didn't even consider it because it's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but it's like where it is, it's full sun like for the first half of the day.
Yeah.
Basically, and the first half of the day I always forget about. So because like normally like moving stuff and that is what I do in like the afternoon. So I just didn't even think of it, and now I'm like, I can't really put it back where it was, so I got to think of an idea.
Yeah. Put an umbrella
I'll think
over
of something. Yeah, well, you laugh, but I was kind of thinking of making some kind of structure to block out some of the light.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, some big panels behind it or something. But then I was like, there's a lot of effort for a tiny little tank. Not really worth it. So, but I'll think of something. The fish seem to like it. The fish in natural sun is so cool. Those little pea puffers, they look so cool with natural sun. So at least that's a positive.
Yeah, natural sun does wonders for pretty much every fish. They just sparkle and pop when they get natural sunlight.
Yeah, exactly. Get more like I find like deep colors almost. So
yeah, like the second depth of it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's cool at least. Happy with that, but if only they were seeable past all the algae. So yeah, that's kind of the only thing that's really been going on for me.
Can you just load lots of fast-growing highlight plants in there and try and outcompete it?
Well, I thought I had, but they're all dying. So
even stuff growing out the top, like things that need lots of light.
Yeah, that is part of what I'm gonna do. It's got It's got one stem in it that I can't remember the name of that's supposed to be real fast growing, but that's not really doing anything. So I was thinking I might. Nah. It's got wider leaves.
That was a dad joke, by the way.
I didn't get it, but I was gonna probably pull that all out and put something else, but I haven't decided what I'm gonna put yet because I just don't think it grows fast enough. So I don't know. We'll see.
Grow some plants over the top of it to shade it.
Yeah, duckweed.
That's a good idea.
Get some duckweed.
I did put a ton of duckweed in it yesterday or the day before, but obviously that's not really been long enough to do anything. But I think once everything has a little bit of time to catch up, I think that'll definitely help. So yeah.
Cool.
Oh, well, that's what I've been up to. So I guess we'll dive on into the main topic of today. And as you will all be aware from reading the title, but we're going to be talking about our top tips for fish rooms. So if you're setting up your fish room, maybe it's like 10, 20 tanks or something like that, and you're wanting to know what sort of maybe some of the less common things to think about, that what are you going to do to make the whole thing easier, more efficient, more effective in your goal, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess, I don't know, maybe Ryan wants to start us off because he's probably got the most experience out of all of us with his number one tip for building a fish room or keeping a fish room in general.
I think I could talk for hours about this.
Good thing we have a podcast.
Yeah, my number one thing is probably insulation, I guess. Because what I've done when I've made other fish rooms is just get excited and pour lots of tanks into any space I've got, right? And usually it's in summer or spring when it's nice and warm and you chuck them all in and you get real keen. And then winter hits and all these tanks are in there and you can't insulate the place properly. You can't insulate the walls, you can't insulate the floor, all the ceiling, and you're like, this was stupid. And then your power balls go through the roof, or you can't get the tanks warm enough, and it's just a nightmare. So I guess in a fish room, I always go with a heated space rather than heating the tanks, just because it's more efficient. And I don't like having to put like 30 or 40 power points in an area with high humidity and moisture, and just think it's a disaster. Also, if you've got 30 or 40 heaters running, you're always going to have one that's broken statistically, because you just got more exposure to broken heaters. So yeah, it's a nightmare. They'll stick on and stuff. So I always go heated room, and yeah, insulation is key. A lot of them I built without it. It sucked. The last one I bought a shipping container that was insulated already, so awesome, done. But the one before that, I insulated everything, including the floor, putting 100 mil poly down and 21 mil ply on the floor, 150 mil poly on the roof, 100 mils on the walls. Like, it was pretty well insulated, and it took nothing to heat. So that's the main thing. Keeps the cost down. I've seen plenty of seasonal fish keepers that fill their garage up with fish tanks in summer and spring, and yeah, I'm a fish breeder, and then winter comes, $900,000 power bills. You know, so you just want to keep the cost down for yourself, make it manageable. Is my first one.
Yep, that makes sense. So when you say like centrally heated, you mean that would just be like a heater on a thermostat switch, wouldn't it? Like a normal, fan heater or something.
Yeah, I've killed a tired fish room just by using the thermostat that's built into the heater. So I do not use them anymore. I use them, but I use them with a secondary thermostat just to make sure that they don't stick on and cook everything. My current room, I've got a inkbird with the probes inside a tank set to 26 degrees, and that's plugged into the external heater. So it heats the room until that tank gets to 26 degrees and then turns off.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Rather than an air-based system, which obviously a heater is air-based, so it heats the room to a certain temperature. I don't really care what temperature the room gets to. I care what temperature the tanks get to. And you've also got to be wary of thermal layering as well in a fish room, which is why I've got a bunch of fans all around mine that don't do anything.
So what does that mean?
Top tanks are warm, bottom tanks are cold. So yeah,
hot air rises.
Hot air rises. The top tanks are always going to be cooler than the bottom tanks. So it's just what it is. You could at least you get proper fans, and I haven't really done that in my room, but that's okay because the tanks will stay warm enough for the fish to live. And
yeah, generally the difference wouldn't be 10 degrees or anything like that, would it? Be a few degrees more.
I've got about 4 probably in my room at the moment.
Yeah.
So bottom tanks are about 20 to 22, which is too low for me. But it's only really a month or two of the year that it's a problem. And it's not going to, it doesn't hurt the fish as such. They just don't grow as well and don't eat as much. So I just live with that. I also I'd rather it be 24 to 26 just to get a bit things optimal. But
you're bordering on no sort of safety factor if there's a disaster, but it'll still sort of tolerate it, if that makes sense.
The good thing with temperature in a fish room is once you get like I've got 60 tanks in there to temperature, it's really hard for it to drop. Like it stays really stable. So because it's insulated and stuff, it stays really stable. So you don't really have any massive things happening really fast like you do with one aquarium in a cold room. So you do have a lot of safety factor. I also I'm not running my heater this winter. I'm just relying on the lights and the air pump and I've got the heater set to run. I've got this, the free power for 3 hours in the evening with contact. So I run the room heater for 3 hours during that free heating period in the evenings.
You're sneakily cheap, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's working.
More money for
It's working. It's working. So and to me, like, if it was a commercial breeding operation and the fish needed to be pumped out, you'd have to do it differently. But to me, it's about how do I get through these? The Powerball's already jumped up for the house a lot over winter because we've got a lot of people here. So I'm just trying to keep it manageable. We don't want $900 Powerballs. So, yeah.
So what with doing that, just running it off the lights and the air pump and that, what's it stay like? Roughly, what would it be staying at now?
I was still 23 to 24 in the middle of the room. The bottom tanks are down to 20, top tanks at 25, 26.
Yeah. So still plenty warm enough.
My Tropheus breeder tanks have heaters in them too.
Yeah.
So I've got 2 tanks with heaters in there out there. Because I wanted to keep things as stable as I could for them.
So they could not breed for you?
They don't breed anyway. But we'll crack that eventually, and I'm working on it. But yeah, that's the only 2 tanks that have got heaters in there. It's just 2 Tropheus tanks, just to try and keep them at 27.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah,
I think that's definitely a good one.
Cheaply and efficiently, and you got to do it before you put all tanks in.
Temperature. Yeah, 100%. I think that's definitely a good idea. Takes out a lot of the expense.
A lot of people just insulate it and put a heat pump in.
Yeah, if you that's a much more sort of less Helensville way of doing it, I'd say.
But I was limited on space, and also didn't really want to drop $2,000 on a heat pump. So,
So just hillbilly it and hope it goes well.
It's thought through hillbillying.
Yeah. All right. I'll let it slide.
Okay.
Sweet.
Who's
so
the next suggestion?
No. Do you want to go next, Cam, or shall I?
Yeah, I can go next because if I wait too long, all my other ideas will be crossed off because Ryan's just crossed off about half the things I've had written down.
So go to town. Go to town, Mr. Prepared. I was just going to wing it.
I'm only prepared in the last 5 minutes as we've been talking. I've been writing things down like normal. Just furthering on a little bit what Ryan said, that water itself is a really good heat sink. So the more water volume you've got, the more stable that your parameters are or your heating in particular is going to sit. So if you've got room, stuff as many aquariums in that room that you've possibly got.
Sounds like a good excuse.
Absolutely, but yeah, like the more you've got, the water stays more stable, which again makes the heating cost a lot less. So yeah, the more volume that you can cram into a fish room, generally speaking, the better it becomes and the more efficient it becomes. When you're centrally heating everything, it's going to cost the same to run one tank as what it is 500, give or take. So yeah, the more you've got, the better that heat will stay solid.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's like, I think also the stability is not stability, but
don't
keeping the temperature stable is a lot easier because they're not going to sort of fluctuate as much because of that, what you were saying of it being such a good heat sink. So then, like, if the room, like the actual air in the room is fluctuating like a couple degrees or whatever, then the tanks actually aren't really going to fluctuate the same because they're going to hold the heat so much longer than the air. And obviously, it depends what fish you're keeping, but a lot of the more sensitive kind of things, that'll be better to not have those fluctuations. So I think that is a good idea, but also it's a good excuse because you got all these tanks, you're going to need some fish for them. So boom. Away you go.
Yeah, it makes sense to put as many in as you can. I agree. Also, with temperature,
your partner's going to hate you whether you've got 50 tanks or 75 because you're still spending most of your time out there, and it is what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
too easy.
Yeah.
Relatable. Just propose and it's problem
I've
solved.
crammed tanks into the funniest little spaces in my fish room, which I like. I think it's funny.
Those are crack up, those tiny
those
little
ones by the door. Yeah, yeah. A little
So for
200
people
mil,
listening-
200 mil gap, and I built this little shelf for the side of it.
Those tanks probably hold maybe 5 liters at the most.
No, they're 300 by 20 by 200 by 200.
7
So
liters.
Oh, are they? That's a lot deeper than I thought they were.
Yeah, that's
I
300.
thought they were
So
like- I thought they were real shallow front to back. So
about 20 liters. They're good little fry tanks or isolation tanks. So
yeah, does the job.
Yeah,
But no,
let me have a second fish room. So I've got to do what I can with the one measly one that she'll allow me to have.
Will she allow you to join them together and then have one fish tank that's the same? So just a tiny little spot well between 2 containers becomes the same fish room?
One
Or a
on
door
top,
between-
maybe.
a door-
One on
a door-
top.
A door between them, side by side?
I reckon one on top would be the way to go. They can be stacked.
Stackable fish room.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Then you can just go like 8 stories high and boom. You got a fish keeping skyscraper.
She's definitely supportive of this idea, I think.
Oh,
I don't know New Zealand sign language, but she's pulling stuff at me. So
I'm sure once you propose, it'll get her on side enough to get you your second fish room.
Next subject, new subject.
All right. Well, so I was gonna do my next one, or my first one, I suppose, and I'm gonna go a bit of a different route. You guys are going more your kind of technical side of things. I was gonna go more I don't know what you call it, philosophical side of things. And for me, I think the most important thing is to have a sort of not a vision, but like a purpose. Like a lot of people I find kind of just get a lot of tanks, even maybe not even necessarily fish rooms, but kind of just get a lot of tanks and just like go with the flow. And that's fine. But I think when you're doing a fish room, it needs to be a bit more like to get the most out of it, it needs to be a bit more like doing it for X reason. And I mean, even if that reason is like just for enjoyment's sake or just to have fun and that is fine. But doing it kind of with a purpose, I think gives you a lot more long term. It'll give you a lot more enjoyment. Like maybe it's like, oh, I really want to breed, X fish or X type of fish, or I really want to grow heaps of plants and be able to propagate all these plants or collect all these rare things, or just do some nice displays that I can have fun with. But I think having that kind of purpose and like goal in mind is really important to not kind of just get a bit lost, because a lot of people often end up with like, oh, bit of this, bit of this, bit of that, and it's a bit like muddled. So yeah, that's kind of my first option.
I could definitely, like the intention of my fish room was to cram as many tanks as I could in and breed African cichlids. So it's not for viewing and stuff, but I've seen plenty of people chuck lots of tanks in a fish room and then pull them all out again afterwards and redesign it around putting like a couch in the middle or making it a space they can actually hang out in more than
yeah, exactly.
just a stinky, bubbly fish room, because they find they're not able to enjoy their fish in there.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. Actually enjoying your fish in a room, and like I've done it as well. I've had a room where I've kind of had to shuffle along through it, and it's not that enjoyable. When I took the middle piece out, you walk around and actually enjoy what you've got. It makes it so much more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm often sitting on the floor in my fish room, leaning up against the tank, chilling, watching the fish. And for me, I don't care. It's good. It doesn't bother me. But I definitely know people that have wanted to set it up as a chill place, maybe somewhere they can go have a smoke and enjoy the fish. Hang out, have a drink. Some people put a pool table in the middle, which I've just wondered is that a smart idea? But I've never seen
That
I've
is
seen any
playing
tanks
with
broken.
fire, but go
I
ahead.
haven't seen any tanks get broken yet, but
I've always thought the same thing when I've seen a pool table in a fish room. I was like, oh, that just does not think. I don't know. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
Way too
yeah.
much
But I
go wrong
mean,
with that.
yeah, I think that is really kind of an important thing to consider. Because, like you said, your fish room's kind of you end up sitting on the floor, leaning against two tanks, and sitting in a puddle, and that's fine because that's what you're trying to do. But yeah, just a lot of people don't want to do that.
well,
or
sometimes I glamp it and I sit on an upturned bucket.
oh, what a fancy guy!
Yeah, that's
Oh,
just
yeah.
if I'm feeling really fancy.
Are you pants down and using the bucket appropriately, or are you actually sitting?
No, you always pee in the tanks to keep them cycled. That's what you do, isn't it?
Oh, I was
That's
going to say
also-
something,
that's
but I
real.
won't.
Yeah,
Ammonia jokes, fishkeeper
Yeah.
jokes.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that's something important.
Yeah, what is your intention
that-
with the fish room? If think
that
about it,
intention can be anything. So
there's no right
don't
or wrong. What
stress
you want to
about
build
it.
it for?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's your fish tank, so you can build it for whatever you want. But just actually don't just. I would recommend not just like going with the flow and kind of ending up with something that's not exactly what you are trying to do. Just because that's not going to be as fun. So,
And it's a lot. It is a lot of work to build a fish room. So you may as well start off and go, right, what do I want to actually get out of it first? And sometimes it's just cram as many fish tanks as you can in a small space for as cheap as possible. And I've got plenty of fish rooms like that. Don't worry about that. And where it's been
the Helensville approach.
Well, no, you should sort of seen some of the ones I have built. They've been interesting. But anyway, this one's a fancy fish room compared to them.
Whoa.
But it's still it's still functional for what I designed it for, and I'm happy with it. So it's all good.
Exactly, that's the main thing, isn't it? So yeah, that's my first one. So
My next one is I'm going to leave Cam. I know that Cam Inbred will have a real easy one on his list, so I'll let him have that easy one. I'll let you have central. I'll let you have central air, okay? So and I'll do automatic water change.
That's not even on my list. I'm going to write that down now. It's not
why is that not on your list?
That would have been an easy one for you to do. I reckon that if you do a fish room, you need to have. Well, I'd say you need to have automatic water change system, but if you don't, you at least have to plan out how you're going to get your water in and out of your tanks. You know what I mean? So that make it easy for yourself. The one I've built now is the first one with the automatic water change on it, and it's brilliant. Like I don't have to do any water changes at all. So yeah, I'd just recommend automatic water change system. But if you don't have an automatic water change system, at least have an easy way to get water in and out. That's not going to, because you don't want to consume your life doing water changes. I still do manual water changes occasionally, like once a month on some of the tanks when they need a good clean out and a wipe down and do a 50% water change. But most of the time it's just on the water change system, which is 10 to 15% new water a day.
So for those that haven't done automatic water change before, do you want to, it's fairly obvious in the words, but explain a little bit more on what that is, how that works, and how it becomes a massive positive for your life.
My system is, there's lots of different ways to do it, but the way that I've gone with it is I've drilled all the tanks and put overflows on them, and I have a garden irrigation system dripping the water into the tanks. So, and I've calculated 10% of the tanks. So, like I've got a 100-litre tank, I get I do 10% of that. So it's 10 litres.
Is that daily?
Yeah. So I get a 10-litre per hour dripper, and set my garden water timer to go off for 15 minutes 4 times a day. So it goes on at 9 o'clock, at 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and 4 o'clock or something. So I just spread between the day, the hours a day. So for 15 minutes once a day, they get 2.5% of water poured in the tank. So things going very gradually because I just use straight tap water. So I need things to be very gradual. I've actually upped it a little bit to 20 minutes on some tanks and 30 minutes on others just to get a bit more water through. And that seems to be working really well just to keep things clean and keep things pumping.
So the way that works, water comes in through the tap and then basically fills up their tank and then goes out the drain straight out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I guess when you put 10% in, you're actually pouring some of your fresh water out again. So you only actually get like a net result of like 7-8% staying in the tank, So if you're doing 10%, so it's rough enough, but over a week it works out to 60-70%, which is good.
Good. Yeah.
And it happens automatically, so I don't have to worry about it. I have had a few headaches with it. Again, just being a cheap ass and using cheap components.
No, you'd never do that.
So now that I've upgraded all, and I've got a system I'm currently using I've divided into 4 banks. So there's 4 solenoids that run each bank, and I've got a master solenoid too. So the master solenoid turns on, and then each bank turns on. So there's a double redundancy, so it doesn't jam on. So things like that make a big difference, because obviously I've had it stick on before, and it killed a few fish. Not many, but a few. And it's also really hard to diagnose. So, once a week I actually go through and test it now and make sure that each bank's working and turning off. So, pull a dripper out every time I go out and feed and make sure that the drippers aren't still running. The other way around that is some people do a constant drip system, which works too. So if you had like a 100-litre tank, you'd work out 10 litres and then you'd divide that by 24. So you'd get half a litre. So you get a 0.5 litre per hour dripper, chuck that in and just have the water running constantly. So it's dripping 10 litres in a day, but over 24 hours. That's probably the easier way to do it. But it all works.
As long as you're diluting the water, it's going to do what it needs to do.
Yeah, and that's probably the most basic way of doing it.
Yeah. I think having the drain is the most important part. So like, that's just like a hole in the back, well, a hole anywhere where the water overflows out and then is like wastewater. Because I think everyone definitely should have a drain. You don't necessarily need automatic on. Automatic on's good for if you've got a lot of tanks, but in the shop I don't have an automatic water change system as such. I just have drains, and then I just chuck the hose in for X amount of minutes depending on the size of the tank, and then go off and do my thing. I do set a timer on my phone though, so I remember to turn it off, but that's another easier way to do it more simply, which probably, if you've got a smaller fish room, is probably more sort of manageable, I guess, in that you don't need to buy all this fancy equipment. You can just run the hose for, say 20 minutes or whatever for a tank, and then leave it at that. But I think having a drain is definitely like so important. 100%.
And it takes nothing to drill a tank. Like, it's not that hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Buy a drill bit off Trade Me and have a drill and a bit of patience and some running water and just drill it.
It's easy. One of those ones that seems very scary. Like, I was so terrified when I did my first one, but it's very easy. You just gotta.
Maybe we need to do a DIY. Maybe we need to do a DIY one.
Yeah, we'll do that one day when Cam's sick.
Cut me out.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's a good way of doing it. And then you can just get some scrap glass or something and practice a couple times if you're worried. But it's very easy. The only thing I'm gonna say with this system is, well, that was weird.
I was talking to Kim. She's gonna bash the ice with the rolling pin, so I just muted you. I said, "Hang on."
Oh, fair enough. The thing I was going to say to be mindful of, obviously it doesn't really apply to Ryan with African cichlids, but if you're keeping like smaller fish, like, I don't know, you got like tetras or something, just be careful of them getting sucked up the overflow. So what you can do is like you can hide it behind a weir or something, like a little, how would you explain that? It's like a little kind of wall thing that the water can go through. Like maybe it's got sponge or something, but the fish can't get through. So that's the only thing to be careful of.
Depending on how you set
we
it up,
obviously
you
don't
can
want to.
you can put guards over them, like actual things that screw onto the pipes that
Yeah,
continue
yeah.
to flow the water out and the fish won't get out.
Well, you could just jam a sponge in there and just
Yeah, all that.
every couple of days
Yeah.
squeeze it out in the tank and make sure it's not blocked up. It's not hard.
Yeah, it is just something to be mindful of if you're keeping them sort of smaller things. I know Ryan's lost shell dwellers and stuff down the thing, so that's not ideal.
My
So
shellies, I had to screen them off because they liked to go and try and hide in the overflow. They thought it was shells.
oh, stupid fish.
So yeah, I was like, well, okay. And bristle nose fry seem to go down it too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, that is just something to be mindful of, but it is a solvable problem.
And with overflows, I would say I made a mistake in my room and put them all at the back of the tank so that it would be nicer and they wouldn't be in the way. And I don't have access to them, and some of them leak. So when you've got to pull all the tanks out,
ones that cost more than $1 so that you can actually get proper ones that don't leak.
But no, it's just when sometimes they get loose or they twist or something. It's just they're always needed for maintenance. So you should always have access to them, I reckon, because I made that mistake in my room. And now I want to pull all my tanks out and start again, but it's too much work.
Sounds like a big job.
Yeah.
Why don't you call someone in to do it?
I'll just ring up, just dial on the internet, Fishroom makers, New Zealand, and get them in.
There's a reality TV show in this.
Is there?
Yeah, Fishroom Makeover.
Yeah, once we've remade the 4 fish rooms in New Zealand, we've got to travel international.
I actually reckon that'd be so much fun. Maybe I'll try sell some fish rooms. I would love to just do that. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I'd love to rebuild one with some intention and some budget. With some budget. Because like my one, I had to add the last. Hang on, you guys talking.
Okay,
so yes, sure. Good town.
I've got having backups of things. So, like if you're running central air, having a backup of your air pump, as an example. If you're running central heating, probably have a few heaters hanging around for just in case reasons. It's just things and parts that potentially could break and go wrong, which could cause a few issues. And if something goes wrong on a Saturday night or whatever, the shops are closed on a Sunday. At least you've got what you need.
Shops only closed on Sunday at Nelson.
Yeah, shops close on Sunday with places that care about spending time with their family and their loved ones, and it's not all about work. So stick it.
Yep. Sorry, sir. Please forgive me.
You should be. I'm not forgiving you. So just having bits and pieces back up. Shop might be open on wherever you live on a Sunday, but they don't stock the air pump that you need, for an example. So I think it's a smart idea to have bits and pieces as a backup for just in case reasons. It could save your ass and save your fish in a week.
Makes sense for sure.
At least for air pumps. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, I was going to say, at least for like the life support systems, you probably don't need like lights and all that, but the things that actually keeps everything alive is probably the most important part. Like you said, the air and the heating, and maybe a spare tank here and there and that kind of thing.
The heating I wouldn't worry too much about because if you got your fish room to temperature, they'll survive 3-4 days even with no heater, and you can probably
depends on your insulation.
You can, you're right. But you could probably always go to the warehouse and they're open in civilization, you can go to the warehouse if you're in civilization.
Go to Kmart
and just
24/7.
buy something, So, but yeah, definitely the air. I mean, no one's talked about central air, even though I left it as an open one for Cam Inbred to talk about.
That was low hanging fruit. I'm surprised he didn't take it.
You talked about it in your first. You talked about it in your first spiel, so I thought you were going to expand on it. So that's on you, not me.
No, I did installation.
No. Part of your first spiel, you talked about heating and central air and other bits and pieces. We can watch this recording back if you want to.
I'm pretty sure I've not talked about central air.
You have.
But anyway, I'll talk about central air then. Like the easiest way to filter a large number of tanks is with air power filters. So you don't want to have a whole bunch of canister filters running or internal filters running and just random stuff running everywhere and power cables and impellers and stuff that's going to wear out and break and be high maintenance. So you just basically plumb up one big air pump to power everything. And you run a big loop around your room and you just tee into it wherever you need air and run little inline valves, and that's it. In my room, I've run 2 air pumps in 2 separate systems, and all the big tanks have one filter running off each pump so that if one fails, there's a backup. And I've got rebuild kits for one of my air pumps. I'm still probably need to chase Cam to get the rebuild kit for the Aqua 1, or maybe I just buy another pump.
Can't find them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've got to go to eBay, or I've got 2 spare pumps sitting under the house anyway. I just need to make sure they work properly. But yeah, it's always with life support stuff like an air pump that's running all your filtration and aeration systems. I've always got a rebuild kit for mine sitting on the shelf, ready to go. So, because it died recently and I just rebuilt it. It was out for an hour. Put new diaphragms in it. Done.
I'd just buy
Too
a new
easy.
one. That sounds way too DIY like.
The one that I've got is actually like a $600 septic air tank one that's like real high end out of England. So it's worth rebuilding.
Just a wee caveat on your central air system. Not all fish are totally usable in that sense. Like there's some fish that poop pretty big and your sponge filter ain't going to quite deal with it. So like I remember walking into Jeff's Fishroom and he was all hang on back filters all the way through, and it was purely for the volume that he was putting through. A sponge filter wouldn't handle that. So although
I think biologically a sponge filter would.
Mechanically not.
Yeah. It depends. Again,
And I suppose that goes back to what you're trying to do, because like
Yes.
Brian's tanks are all full of crap and no one cares because they're to breed. But if I'm trying to see a fish, then I can't because the sponge filters haven't been maintained in 2 years. So it's all about what you're trying to achieve with it.
Yeah.
If you
I'd
just
say
want whatever's most
overall-
efficient,
Overall, sponges will do your job for the best part, but there might be some cases where that's not quite going to do it for you, and you have to go down a canister routes or hang on back
100%.
for internals or whatever. Yeah, I think.
And I mean, you
overall,
don't
the
have
best
to do
part of it.
you don't have to do either or. Because,
you do both.
Excuse me. Because most people, I'm going to say, aren't like us, like super niche. Like most people aren't going to keep an entire fish room of Africans. Like they might have like an African tank, like a planted tank, like a few different things, or like a few different specialities. And so like you'll probably want to run air in your tanks anyway, just in case, in case the filter goes out so they're still aerated. So may as well put a sponge filter on the end of it, just for extra load. But then those tanks with like super wasteful things have a canister on it as well, and then your little guppy tank is just a sponge filter. The only other thing,
there's a lot of people that run like banked sump systems as well around the place for fish rooms. And
100%.
To keep it tidy, you've got 2 plugs, your pump and your heaters going in, sort of thing, and it's all hidden and tidy as well. So it keeps it.
That's kind of the more.
Keeps it clean.
That's the more fancy route. I love that. That's so cool. I want to do that.
I don't
that.
like central sump systems, but that's just me. I think it's too risky. But
I wouldn't do it on 100% central, but maybe like,
you could do banks.
2 or 3 tanks per sump.
You could do banks. banks of tanks. I think that would work. But again, I don't like the idea of it. I think it's really easy to do a water change system and an air pump in each tank and a sponge filter in each tank and keep things isolated. But that's just me. People do it and people have success, but yeah.
The other thing I was going to say to consider is there's plenty of situations where box filters or matin filters is a better option, because like if you go, for example, you said Jeff who keeps fancy plecos. If those were all sponge filters, they'd all just be getting munched all the time and there'd be bits of sponge all over the place and they'd last a month and then you need to replace them. But a box filter is obviously not going to get munched. Matin filter is probably going to be a bit better longevity wise. So that's the only other thing. Like air powered filters don't necessarily have to be sponge filters, because the main sort of detractor for them is that they're ugly. But there's plenty of options for air powered filters that are going to look a lot nicer aesthetically speaking than just a random sponge filter sitting in the middle of the thing. So
and Hamburg Mattins are fucking awesome. Hamburg Mattins are awesome.
Language.
They're awesome. They're so good. So good.
Yeah.
I've only got 4 tanks in the room that came with them, and I haven't bothered to make any more, but they are so good. They're always the cleanest tanks in my room.
I reckon if I was gonna make another fish room, I think I'd do it all matin filters. I don't think I'd do sponge filters. Just so like for someone listening who has no idea what we're talking about, what are we talking about? What are those filters? What do they look like? How do they work?
So it's basically like a sponge filter, but you make one wall or one corner of your tank and you put a bit of foam across it, and then you build a little uplifter behind it that sucks water through it, basically. So you have it coming over the top, bubbling water over the top. You use air, use air to make an uplifter which sucks the water through it. And they're just real old school, but they're really efficient. Like the ones that I've got they're so good. I actually started making more, but I've lost interest.
Yeah, makes sense. I think the reason why I like them so much is they look so much like they're so much more aesthetically pleasing. Like once you have a big matin filter set up in your tank, it just looks like the side of the tank or the back of the tank. So it doesn't take anything away. Like if you're into aquascaping, you can do a nice aquascape. Like,
and you can plant it. You can have plants like Java ferns and anubis and stuff growing in it. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like a big one of those big plant walls they do in like offices and that.
Yeah. You can put moss up it and stuff. It's just really cool.
Yeah, and I think and then it handles that problem of but it's ugly, because it's obviously not. You can buy like what you can do is like get what do they call that? Like coral flute. Like you can put a big thing of coral flute and put a bunch of holes in it if you want to have it a bit more like firm, or if you're worried that fish will get behind it or something, and then silicone that coral flute in as a wall, and then have the sponge on the other side.
Coral flute, yeah.
Don't care.
That plastic stuff, yeah.
Yeah, whatever they call it. It's like there's like it's just a big sheet of plastic basically, and so you can do that if you're worried about stuff getting behind it, or you want it to make it look a little bit tidier or whatever. And then because you don't even necessarily have to run it off air, do you? You could put like a little pump in the
power
back.
Heads behind it if you want,
Yeah, if you want to do it super fancy like, because that's actually how
works perfectly.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm actually thinking about doing one. So I'm doing this Julie tank at home, and I'm thinking about doing a power matin filter to run it, because it'll be silent, and I don't have room to run any pumps, any canisters or anything. So stay tuned. Maybe I'll do a little tutorial.
If the breed you want, the power might suck up the fry, but I'm sure you can mitigate that
behind
somehow.
a matin filter. Like a power matin filter, I mean. Because then it would be on the other side of the matin. They wouldn't be able to get through it. I've thought about it, man. Don't worry. It's all under control.
Cool.
Another
thing that...
Sorry, Karen.
Huh?
I thought you liked this. What? I did. I said I thought you liked the sound of water bubbling away.
I do, but not in well, I wouldn't mind, but it'll be in our bedroom. So if it makes any noise, I will be murdered in my sleep.
Need to consider the better half. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. So we will make it quiet, but I do like it in the shop. Like, there's so many. I always put the canister filter outlets above the water so that I can listen to it and go to the toilet. So yeah, but yeah.
Okay, cool. What's the
So-
next hack?
I think it's my turn now.
You going? You still going? You still going?
Wait, I did get skipped last time, so now it's my turn. But again, I'm not going to go as much the technical route because that's not my thing. I'm going to go more the having fun kind of route. And I know Ryan's going to hate this suggestion, but my biggest thing is get some proper lights. Like, spend a little bit of money on some lights, because the reason we all have fish is to look at them. And so if you're like Ryan and have these shitty little lights, you never get to see the fish. So it ruins the fun. So, and I mean, I'm not saying you have to buy like super fancy, like aquarium branded ones. Like, go down to the hardware store and get some, like, I don't know. I was going to say tubes, but just get some sort of light that's like semi decent, because so often you walk into a fish room and, you know, there's no expense spared with like super rare fish, like nice stands, like proper tanks and all this. And then you can't see anything because there's some shitty little AliExpress LED strip hanging on the top that is a half underwater and half the LEDs are broken and you can't even see anything. So
hey, the LEDs aren't broken. The LEDs aren't broken.
That one I was thinking about a different person, but the fact that you resonated with that comment speaks volumes.
So you 100% were talking about my fish room.
I was,
you're attacking me. You're attacking me.
I was for a lot of it, because I mean, obviously it's a bit different. Like, do whatever you want, of course, but for me, if I had another fish room, I would want to be able to see them, and that's what I've done in the shop. Is like I bought decent lights because looking at the fish is the most fun part. So I don't want to spend all this money on like filtration in there and not be able to see them. So that's what I would say is to get the most out of your fish room, having decent lighting, it goes a long way. So yeah.
I agree with you. I don't have decent lighting
abstract.
in my fish room. No, I don't have decent lighting in my fish room, and I didn't plan for decent lighting in my fish room, and it sucks. So yeah. It was an oversight on my behalf, and now I'm trying to retrofit not very good solutions in to kind of half-ass it.
Yeah, sounds like something you do, but yeah. I mean, having
I didn't plan for it.
Having good lights is really important. They don't have to be anything crazy, but you know, enough to see the fish and see what's going on. Because I mean, even for breeding, like, I'm sure Ryan won't mind telling me telling the story, but he had a pair of compressed seps that the Ultralamprologus compressed seps that were in the back of a tank, and he's like, "Oh, they're not breeding, they're not breeding, they're not breeding." Put a light on. Turns out they had been breeding. He just couldn't see it, and all the fry kept getting eaten by the other fish. So even from a breeding point of view, it's good to have enough light going on.
Yeah, and also I've had some like husbandry issues and fish aggression issues that I didn't notice because I didn't have enough lights. Like, you can't see if a fish is hiding at the back of the tank dead or beaten up, or the filter's not plugged in and they're bubbling away because you can't see the back of the tank. And the problem with a lot of my tanks is they're 750 front to back. So they're quite deep tanks and they're stacked on top of each other. So they're dark, you know, they're not open.
Husbandry alone is worth having some lighting on there just so you can have a decent look. Like, I mean, that's an issue that I struggle with in the quarantine. Like, there's no lights over them, so it makes far more attentive to check on the way through. But then the tanks that have got the lights over them, you can glance and see everything pretty quickly as well. So
it's hard to see a velvet or epi or something like that kicking in, or itch or whatever, without decent lighting. If they're sitting in the dark, you miss stuff. So yeah, definitely.
So basically, I'm smarter than both of you, is what we're saying?
I wouldn't go that far.
That's so random, because both of you
think
have
we're
tanks with no
equally smart.
lights, and I do.
I think we're equally smart because we both own fish businesses, which makes us smarter than Ryan because he doesn't.
Makes sense. I can get behind that argument.
We'll leave that one up to debate.
All right, who's next? Who was going to talk about whatever they were going to talk about?
I was going to say that along with redundancies, I think it's important to have in the back of your mind how you're going to deal with a power cut. Like, you know, I've probably got, I don't know how many tens of thousands of dollars worth of fish in my fish room, and sometimes because of the civilization that I live in, the power can go out.
That's a stretch.
The power can go out, and it hasn't happened often, but it went out for a week once out here.
Wow.
You know, when we had some big storms and stuff, it took out all the power lines, and my mate lost all his fish and stuff, and it was a disaster. And when we had those recent storms, I just went out and bought a generator. I was like, bugger it. So you don't have to go that far, but the good thing with air pumps is they don't use a lot of power. So I've got like a little UPS system that I run in there. Like it's designed to run a computer for a little bit once in a power cut, and I run my air pump off that. So if the power goes out, it automatically powers the air pump for a period of time. And I've got battery inverters from, you know, that I can put a car battery on, and I've got old car battery sitting on charge in the garage. So I've got a couple of systems there that I can use if the power goes out for a long period of time to keep the fish alive. And it's just powering the air pump. That's a cool thing about the air pump is you power one air pump, you know, for 80 watts or 100 watts, and you power 60 tanks.
Yeah,
and as we said, the heat isn't the most.
Sorry,
Yeah, I was going to say, as we said, similar to what Cam was saying, heat isn't the most important. Air or some sort of filtration is the most important. So that's the one. If you had to choose, that's the one you want to power straight away.
Yeah, well, this week just gone, I blew one of my fuses. I may or may not have poured brine shrimp into a power socket accidentally, and it popped everything. Anyway, so yeah, I managed to get the air pump going for all the filtration, and so I was like, sweet as, I'll go home. And I was speaking to an electrician, like, no, we've got to get it going. You've got to get your heaters running and that kind of stuff. So he came in and fixed it. But like, I knew as soon as the air was going, I was good to go basically overnight, and it could be dealt with the next morning. But he was insistent, and that's okay. I appreciate it. I really did appreciate it, and it was it would have been a stressor overnight if I hadn't have done it. But I also knew that the fish would have been most likely fine overnight, just with the air still running through them.
Did you call an electrician for a fuse?
No,
it wasn't a fuse. I tripped my RCD.
He smashed he filled the power socket up with water. Yeah, and so he didn't want to take it apart and isolate it and repower it all because it won't repower.
I misunderstood. I see. Yeah.
It's probably the type of thing that you don't want to play with if you don't understand electricity. So, you know.
Just YOLO it, man. Should be right.
I was even horrified just taking the covers off them. So, just to try and dry them a little bit. It turns out I burnt out an entire socket. And electrician came in, changed the socket over, and the heating, our RCD stopped tripping and the heating went. And I came in the next morning, there was no issues, just like nothing had ever happened. And if I hadn't have told that story, nobody would have known, other than the three of us and the electrician.
Yeah.
And your 10 fake listeners.
I might have actually told the story on TikTok. I can't remember. So maybe 3 people, other people knew.
Okay.
Cool. Who else has? What do you reckon, Ryan? Do you have any others, or Cam, or whoever just came?
Although it's not essential. It's really handy to have a sink and a tap either nearby or within the room as well. So sink and taps help you wash things out and that kind of stuff, wash your hands, all that sort of stuff. So it's not essential, but it is really, really handy having the water supply that's not going to aquariums and a way out for that sort of stuff as well. So
100%.
Cleaning up
I think that's a good idea.
I have to do mine in a bucket on the floor, and it's not it's not as good as a sink. A sink would be good, handy. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Again, not essential. You can work around it, but it does just make life that little bit easier when you
that is tank space you have to give up for a sink.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
I know Ryan could
But
probably have one on the outside, hooked up to the
I was
outside.
just thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, could I put a sink outside? How would Kim appreciate a sink in the backyard? She already hates the fish room.
Outdoor
Just
washing.
put a big plant in front of it and no one will know.
There used to be a plant in front of the fish room, but it died.
Maybe
Now.
set up a shower so you could have it. Put a shower so then you can use your pool at the same time. When the kids are getting out, they can be cleaned in the shower, wash the chlorine off, and then you've got a sink. You've got a workaround.
Great idea.
Life hack.
Thinking of the family first.
Oh, Ryan's weekend project is sorted then?
I got plenty of projects, and I ain't doing that.
Can't argue with that.
You got any more, Kim?
I do, yes.
Yeah. I've got
Unless you got any you want to go. All right. Well, my one is significantly less fun, but I think when you're talking about, maybe like, so setting up a fish room is never cheap. So like when you're talking about this much money and when you're talking about like living things, I think the responsible thing to do is to consider what is going to happen if something bad is going to happen to you. So like if you are incapacitated for any length of time or you die, I think it is the responsible thing to do to consider what to do. Like if you've got one aquarium sitting in your living room, it's a bit more manageable for non-fish people to figure out what's going on. But if you've got a whole fish room here, like if, hopefully not, but if something was to happen to Ryan, I'm sure Kim would be like, what the hell do I do with all these fish? How do I look after them? What do I do with them? Like, I don't want them. How do I get rid of them? All this kind of thing. Yeah, but
because he knows you.
It's called an example, boy. But you want to, or like, what if something happened to you and Kim? Hopefully not. But it's always good to have these plans backed up. So I think having that conversation is very important, and having these kind of ideas of like, if so, like with the shop, I have talked to everyone who would need to know, like if I get run over, then ring these people, ring Ryan, ring a couple other people. They'll sort all the fish and then give them away or like keep them or whatever. Like they'll make sure they don't die, and then after that, sorting a bunch of empty tanks and stuff is a lot more manageable than like stuff that didn't ask to be put in a fish tank.
It's just hardware. It's not hard to get. It's not hard to move.
Like if that takes a year to move on, no one's going to care. But if the fish take a year to move on, there's probably not going to be any fish left. So I think that's something that's worth thinking about that gets missed a lot.
It's funny you bring that up. I've had that conversation with my wife as well, although it was several years ago now. I have had that, what would you do if something happened to me? And, where would you go? What would you do with the fish? So, it makes sense to have a little wee backup plan, almost like life insurance for your funeral.
Yeah, pretty much. And like not just one person. Like I talked to my missus about it. I talked to my dad about it. I talked to my brother about it. Like, just here's some phone numbers. These people will be able to look after the fish. And, obviously if I die, I'd imagine you'll be pretty sad. So like that would be good if you didn't have to worry about that. So I think that is the responsible thing to do. It's obviously less fun than a lot of other situations, but as fish keepers in general, I think it's something we don't really think about when you would for a dog or something.
Following on from that, it's also important, I think, to consider your living arrangements as well. Like I've seen a lot of people build fish rooms and when they're renting, and then the next month get kicked out. I'm not saying
it's not easy to move a fish room.
I'd say I'm not saying don't build a fish room if you're renting, but just consider it. Hey, if for whatever reason my landlord wants to sell the house or whatever, what am I going to do with it? And am I going to be allowed to do it in the next house? And I've had people set up fish rooms and then relationships go bad and things like that. So it's always just a planning thing. Can it be moved? Would I,
Yeah, can I maybe condense all these fish into 2 tanks and then it's more manageable, or like just having that sort of plan, not plan necessarily, but like being aware that it's like not having it be, if anything changes, then it's all going to hell. It's like, oh, okay, I got a couple options, so it's not the
You
end of
don't
the
want
world if something happens and we have to move house down the road or something like that.
You don't want to be negative and never do it, but you just want to be thinking about what could happen and how you.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't
Just
want to be
having
having
that thought in your head.
The last thing you want to be doing is having a fire sale on a fish room because you will get cents and a dollar. They're not worth anything anyway, really. Not worth big money to resell. But if you're having to sell them in a hurry, you're giving them away.
Yeah, and also, pretty much.
You do have the ethical consideration of, again, the living animals that are under your care. So
exactly.
And
got to make sure they're set up right.
My next one was along the same lines as that, is humidity.
Yep.
Humidity and water. Like, you're putting, if you've got a fish room, it's going to get flooded. Something, the floor is going to get wet, and there's going to be humidity. No, it's just what it is. Like, you put 30 or 40 tanks in a small area, you're going to flood one at some stage. One's going to leak, something's going to go wrong. So you need to make sure that, like, if you're doing it in a bedroom on the side of your house or your rental house or something like that, you need to make sure that everything's taken care of in that regard, and that it can get wet, and that it's not going to be a massive disaster soaking through the whole house or dripping into the understairs flat or whatever it is, that you're doing it in the right place, So basically make sure that you're... What's that?
I feel personally attacked after the photo.
Mine's soaked. My fish room's soaked, but it's designed to get wet. It doesn't matter. It's a shipping container. It's for freezing stuff, and it's designed to get wet, so it doesn't matter. It's what it is. But obviously you can build it well so that it is dry and it is nice and stuff like that. But just plan for
spills happen.
The eventuality that you're going to have an accident at some stage, and
even,
run a dehumidifier too.
Even like the most perfectly built fish room, like with real tight fitting lids and like big dehumidifiers and stuff, is going to be way more humid than a normal bedroom or something in your house. So it's well worth thinking about. I think even like having dehumidifiers and stuff is a must have. I reckon, if you're wanting to enjoy it in any way, but you can't ever eliminate it. So making sure you're not going to get filled with mold and all this other junk.
It's a risk.
Is a good way to go.
That leads on to my last thing I've got, which is basically having airflow or air movement. Having a window can be helpful. Like, the more you can move the air around, obviously it's going to stay more stable heat-wise, but there's less chance of those kind of drippy spots and all that kind of stuff happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And even from an enjoyment perspective, it'll make it less like choking. Like, I walk into Ryan's fish room and I want to leave straight away because I'm about to overheat. I feel like I got menopause or something. But like, it's it's I shouldn't say that joke. That was weird.
My last one at home, I always had to open the door, walk straight down to the end and open the window and leave it like that for about 5 minutes before I went in, just to get all that hot, sticky humidity out, and then it was far more enjoyable being in there than what it was.
Yeah, exactly.
My fish room is far nicer in summer when I leave the door open 24/7 because it gets too hot than it is in winter, because I close it up to keep it warm.
Yeah.
It's not a nice place because I'm trying to keep it warm and keep it insulated and keep it closed up. So
it feels sticky and everything feels wet and
kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but
system or a fan system works pretty well. Even
exactly.
Have it on a timer with your lights or with your water change sort of thing. Just flick the vent on, once every 5 hours, just to draw the old air out and refresh it with fresh air would be quite good too.
But then I'm pumping cold air and then having to heat it again, so it's a hard one, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people
it's always a trade-off.
A lot of people have their air pump for their room outside the room,
Yeah.
The theory being that it's drawing
Fresh.
fresh air from the outside and putting it through the room that way, which I think is actually a
That
really
seems
good idea.
funny to me. But then you're putting colder air straight into the tank.
So it is always a consideration. I don't know what the right answer is there. I haven't quite cracked that one, the ventilation one myself.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta. It's always a trade off. You can't have it perfectly insulated, but no humidity. Just find some sort of balance between them.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyone else got any other pearls of wisdom that we've missed?
I'd have lots, but I think we're out of time, so we'll leave it at that for now. I think we've covered most points to start with.
I think this episode could definitely do with a part 2 at some point.
You say that every week.
Yeah, and we will get to them when we stop coming up with original ideas. Don't you worry.
Here's an option. Why don't we just record for longer every time? Why don't we give ourselves 2 hours?
Do you want to?
Well, let's just get some feedback from people about if they want to hear more about fish rooms or they want us to record for longer, because I don't know how many people are still listening at this point to be able to give us that feedback.
I've been told by a couple of people that they just get into it and then we stop. So
yeah.
Those
people. Yeah.
Our looking at the Spotify and YouTube analytics, our retention is pretty good. So I think if people wanting crazy enough to click on a podcast about fish, they listen to the whole thing. So
imagine I wonder if any of them have magic cards though, because that intrigues me. But that's a different story.
I can't. We're talking about Magic the Gathering here. I can't believe it somehow came up in conversation, and this thing, it seems to have triggered something within Ryan.
No, I was just like, what the hell is a magic card? What are you talking about? And he was just like,
doing card tricks for
Dragons, and I was like, oh my god!
I can't believe you didn't know what a Magic the Gathering was. I've never played it, and even I know what it is.
Ryan's too cool for that kind of thing. He's too busy playing with his hot rods.
Far too old.
Yeah,
Go get out there with a stick and a stone and hit that around.
Way too cool. I keep tropical fish, so
Yeah,
I'm not that geeky.
It's all on a relative. It's on a relative scale, man. Don't worry. So yeah, all good. Well, maybe that's something we should talk about.
Magic.
Let us know what you guys think.
If people want us to talk about magic cards, I know lots about it now.
Yeah, we can have a full 3-minute conversation about it.
Yeah, that's it. I'm out. Maybe we could get a guest speaker in, because I'm sure there's lots of fish keepers that also have magic cards and other really cool hobbies like that.
Sounds good.
Don't be so hobbyist. You're being a bully.
No, just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not cool. So yeah. All right, cool.
Alrighty.
Well, thanks for listening in today and learning all about setting up a fish room. We look forward to hearing about all your fish room that you set up, and hearing some feedback about if you want us to go for longer or talk about magic cards. And looks like the merch is pretty much dead in the water because no one wants it. So yeah, we're gonna have to go on to the next sort of money making scheme we've got, which is nothing.
2-hour episodes.
Yeah. Looks like it's going to be a lot longer for me to Lambo. So yeah, it's all right. We'll carry on. All right, talk to you guys later.
See ya.
See ya.
See ya.